Hello everyone and welcome to Stan the Wine Man TV. I am your host, Stan Rattan, and this is the Blue Collar Wine Show where I help you spend your wine dollars wisely. We have a blind tasting, and we are going to blind taste Cabernet Sauvignon because guess what? Christmas is coming up, and a lot of people, including myself, I cook prime ribs. Probably the only time of the year I do it, and I love having Cabernet with prime rib. There's of course going to be other things that I want to suggest in the next couple of days, but Cab is a big thing. Biggest selling red wine in the United States. Got its start really in Bordeaux, where it's the main part of the blend on the left bank of Bordeaux. It also is in the blend on the right bank of Bordeaux, where Merlot predominates pretty much. It is the offspring of Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Franc. That's the parents of Cabernet Sauvignon. A lot of people don't know that, but I've mentioned it many times on this show, so a lot of you viewers know that a white wine is one of the parents of Cab Sauv. Let's get started right away. Number one, I love Cab. A lot of people, when they come in the store, they want to get a Cabernet Sauvignon, and a lot of them want, good value. Of course, we all do. I think all these run 15 and under, I believe. Number one. Let's see what we get on the nose. Cherries and currants right away, a little bit of licorice. I'm just going to call it cherries, currants, and licorice. Let's see what we get on the palate. Solid tannins. Almost a little bit of a grit to them, a little pretty structured. The cherry notes with a little bit of currant come through. I like the structure, and then there's some spice on the backside, which would tell me they're using a little bit of newer oak, and maybe not new oak. I mean, if it's under $15, probably not new oak, but they might use 2-year-old barrels or 3-year-old barrels. Nice flow across the palate, not very complex. This is a simple Cab, but it's okay. You got that cherry, currant, a little bit of tobacco, just a hair, not a lot. Structured tannins, and a decently long finish where there's a little bit of spice on it. It's average. It's okay. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing exciting about it. I don't think anybody would complain if they drank that with their prime rib. Had that with their prime rib. Let's move on. Number two. So, not super exciting start, but yeah, Cab is just such a cool wine. It's a lot of people think, when they first get into the wine world and they started drinking, they want to be serious wine drinkers. They switch over to Cab, maybe from red blends, because I guess you're supposed to, right? Like Cab, but Cab is a very, very approachable wine. It really took a foothold in Napa originally in the 70s, and it was so much different than it is now. It used to have a lot of vegetal characteristics to it. It could age for a long time. A lot of Cabs that come out of Napa now are just big fruit bombs. That's kind of what the consumer is looking for. So they gravitate that way. Let's see what we get on the nose. This has a little bit of a candy-esque thing on the nose. You get a little eucalyptus. There's almost, my first thought is cinnamon with a little peppermint coming through, which is really weird to me. There's definitely currant notes. Now these are from all over the place, okay? I believe there's a couple from Washington, a couple from Argentina, and I think there's one from Australia, if memory serves me correctly. My wife bagged them up, so that's what she told me. A lot of cinnamon. This is really candied on the nose. Let's see what we get on the palate. Very interesting wine. I get that kind of, almost feels like it's eucalyptus, a little touch of mintiness to it. Good balance across the palate, I get cherry and currant notes. That peppermint stick thing just kind of sits in my mind. That's what it reminds me of. But a lot more fruit on this than the other ones. The tannins are solid, but they're smoother than the last wine. I like the cinnamon notes on this. I like the cherry currant, sort of that hint of peppermint stick. Which is probably more like a eucalyptus element. Which would tell me that if we do have an Australian in the lineup, I had the list of the different countries that they came from, and I think Australia was one of them. I like this wine. Good balance. I think a lot of people would like it. It has enough fruit. It's solid enough, structured enough. It's hardly a fruit bomb. But I'm kind of thinking maybe number 2. Let's go through it. But this could be Australian. We don't have a California one in here, so yeah, good solid wine. I'd be really happy with that if it was under 15 bucks, which it is. I know they're 15 and under. Let's move on. Number 3. There we go. Kind of fun to just power through these. So what I do after some of these episodes, I'll sit down on my computer and watch the episode on YouTube and take the notes in my moleskin. So I don't have to taste it twice. You know what I mean. Okay, let's see what we got on those. Oh, I haven't been showing you color. This is fairly dark. Sorry about that. I got going on this. Let's see what we get on the nose. This has a little stink action, like a little perm, like when you walked in the house and your mom was getting a perm. I'm dating myself there, but that's... Or even if you go into a beauty salon, get your hair cut, there's somebody getting a perm, you have that smell. There's a little bit of bark and tobacco. Bark, tobacco, it's blowing off a little bit. There's still a little bit of that hair perm thing going on. And kind of in the background, not a lot of fruit on the nose here. A little bit of currant coming through. Let's see what we get on the palate. Very similar to number 1. It goes across the palate nicely. The tannins are structured. A little attitude to the tannins. There's definitely kind of a dark cherry currant thing going on. But not super complex. I get a sense of the bark notes that I smelled. It does have a sweetness that comes through on the mid palate, then it goes into the finish where it kind of morphs into more tobacco bark thing, maybe a touch of spice. Yeah, not super excited about that one, but it's okay. Like I said, this would be one of those wines that you could serve with dinner, with prime rib. Yeah, and everybody, it's okay. It's okay. All right. Let's go on to number 4. Number 4. You guys can even see that. Why does Stan rinse when he's using the same type of wine? Well, each of them has their different characteristics. That one that, to me, had a little eucalyptus on it might have affected the other wine. Number 4. Let's see what we get on the nose. Boy, this is different than all of them. This is so cool about blind tastings. This has a little mintiness on the nose as well. This could be the Australian wine. Tobacco. I get a little plum action on this one, which is interesting for a cab. Plums and currants kind of blended together. And a hint of like wilted dark red flowers. Yeah, let's see what we get on the palate. This is a more plush. than any of the other ones. I get a really good dark cherry currant action on the front of the palate, through the mid palate into the finish, where there's a little bit of white pepper that hits. There's tobacco underneath this, good balance. Color is as dark as the other one. You would expect that from a Cab, of course. You can barely see through this. I can see my hand. Sorry. This is definitely more fruit, probably higher alcohol. I don't get a burn on it though. It has good balance, nice and seamless across the palate. Good fruit, but not over the top. The tannins are structured but smooth. Just a slight bit of attitude, which I like, especially when you're having prime rib. This to me, so far, is the best of the bunch. Not because of the fruit, just because of its balance. The fruit's there, but the tannins are there. You get the picture. Good acidity is also in there. I like this wine. I'm excited to find out which one that is. But let's move on. You never know. Number 5. These blind tastings are probably the most popular of all the things I do, although I was going back and building playlists, and one of my episodes had almost 900 views. Now, if all those people subscribed, if you guys subscribe to this watching, I'd have 1,000 subscribers right now. So, if you're watching this, you're enjoying it, please subscribe. Number 5. See what we get on the nose. Color. This is darker than the last one. Yeah, and can't see my hand as easily, but there's a little bit of lightness to it. Kind of a burgundy color. Wow, this has got like raisins on the nose. Definitely kind of prune raisin thing going on. Currants for sure. That would be the raisins. Raisinated currants. There's a red flower note kind of hedging towards purple. Has a little candy-esque action on the nose as well. Let's see what we get on the palate. Currants. Nice acidity. Gives it a little bit of a lift. High tones in the mouth. Tobacco comes through on the backside. Sort of like candied, hard candy currants on the mid palate. Then into the finish, the tannins get a little more serious on the finish on this one. It tightens up, gets a little bit dry, but this also has good balance. Man, I mean, I'm hedging between 4 and 5 on this. With slight cinnamon action on the back side of this one. Like I said, this one has a little bit more serious nature to it. Yeah, the tannins get a nice grip. It thins out a little bit on the finish. But then you get that kind of tobacco, a little bit of touch of spice on the back end that kind of lingers a little bit. It just kind of gets kind of, I guess it's fresh rather than thin. Let's just say fresh. Yeah, solid Cab. All right, let's unveil. Or let's put them in the order that they are. Okay. First, second, third, and fourth and fifth are tied. With a C+, number 3. And like, remember, these two they're just above average. There's nothing wrong with them. They just didn't have a lot going on. Domaine Bosquet, or Bosquet, Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon, made with organic grapes, 2018, Tupungato, Uco Valley, Mendoza, Argentina. $15. So, you know, Argentina C+, above average. Just, you know, it didn't have a lot going on, not a lot of complexity. So there you go. In fourth place, tied for fourth. So we didn't have a fifth place really, or tied for fourth and fifth, with a C plus, number one. Yeah, number one. This is new to me. 2018 City Limits Cabernet Sauvignon, Columbia Valley. This rolls in at $15 as well. C plus, like I said, just above average, just not exciting, kind of one-dimensional. Yeah, not one-dimensional, but just not a lot of complexity. All right. In third place, number two, with a B minus. So now we're stepping up a little bit. The Calia Cabernet Sauvignon. Now you see, I thought, can't remember which one I thought was. I'll look back and see which one I thought was Australian. Calia Cabernet Sauvignon 2019 Argentina. There you go. Cool. So, in second place with a straight up B is the 2016 Basil Cellars Cabernet Sauvignon Columbia Valley. It rolls in at $13. Now, interesting is a 15. Now the 16 is much, much better. It's the one that had a little more fruit, a little more depth, complexity. $13. It's a great price. So yeah, much better than the 15. I have done episodes. I have recorded episodes on vintage variation, and yeah, I tell you what, vintage matters, especially if you got a winemaker that doesn't want to mess with it. Just goes with what the vintage has to offer. In first place with a B plus is Point Ormond Cabernet Sauvignon 2016 Margaret River, Western Australia. Interesting. Now this is not the one I guessed as a Australian wine, so I was a little off on it. I believe I thought the City Limits because it had that kind of eucalyptus, minty peppermint thing. Anyway, there you go. Australia, Washington, Argentina, Washington, Argentina. But in first place from Australia. Keep that in mind, guys, because Australian wines need a little bit of loving. Thanks for taking a little time out of your day. I really appreciate your support. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You keep watching, and I'll keep helping you spend your wine dollars wisely.